Sin and the Absolute Solver are 100% one and the same entity, and they have been throughout the entirety of Murder Drones. And I'm going to explain exactly why I believe this. So this actually isn't the next video that I mentioned in my recent community post. That is still coming eventually, and my voice still isn't completely back to normal yet, but I was watching Murder Drones theories the other night, and a bunch of them were still referring to Sin and the Absolute Solver as slightly different things, so I was hit with a flash of inspiration to make this video because I very strongly believe this is not the case. Let's look at the evidence. First of all, this drone here was never named Sin at any point before the Absolute Solver took it over. Sin was the name given to it by Tessa after it woke up already possessed at the beginning of episode 5. How do I know that this wasn't some internally coded name or something like what the worker drones in the present seem to have? Well, that's because it seems to me like all evidence points to the names that Tessa's repaired zombie drones are given coming directly from their armbands. J, N, and V's names all come from the first letter of their serial number, clearly visible on the armband. And the only reason Sin breaks this pattern is because the armband is so faded that the only letters visible are the first letters of the product number, CYN, which remember also appear on J's, N's, and presumably V's armbands as well, meaning that before Tessa names them, these three letters are not unique to this one drone. Okay, but how do I know for sure that this drone's original consciousness isn't still deep down in the drone somewhere? Well, honestly, it might be, but even if it is, I don't believe that it surfaces at all at any point in the series. And definitely not enough for this consciousness to claim the name Sin and be considered a different entity than the Solver. Some might argue that the fact that Sin shows some tiny bits of emotion during episode 5 suggests otherwise, but come on. This is the Absolute Solver we're talking about. Pretending to be something it isn't is kind of like its whole thing. It's just not exactly very consistently good at it yet during episode 5. Like, look at
Shuffle.
an example of it getting the emotion for the situation correct versus
Annoyed expression.
it's still learning at that point. Plus, remember that the Sin that we see in episodes 7 and 8 is literally physically the exact same drone as in episode 5, as we see from this very deliberate shot of its armband. And I think it's pretty safe to say that episodes 7 and 8 Sin is 100% the Absolute Solver, at least in my eyes. Also, and I almost forgot to mention this, but we do see the drone's original consciousness for a moment right before it wakes up, and yes, we can see that the Solver has to ask it for control, but I personally think that in giving it control, the drone is basically being like, yeah, sure, you can have my body, I would rather stay dead than go back and live in that house or something. So I personally think that that drone, whoever they may have been before, is completely gone after that point, but maybe that's just me. The last thing we need to quickly talk about is Administration Sin blocking the Absolute Solver in episode 1, which was for a long time used as evidence for them being two different things, but episode 7 gave us a pretty definitive alternate explanation for this, which is that the Solver nerfed its own powers in the murder drones to ensure that they don't become too powerful and do, well, basically what Uzi did in episode 8. Well, that's all I've got for this one. I hope you enjoyed this quick little theory, and I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. Like I said in the community post, my next longer video will be another Murder Drones one, not the next character analysis quite yet, but I hope you'll still look forward to that anyway. So I will see you guys then, or in whichever video of mine you choose to watch next. Bye!